I was 3.5 years old. We were evacuated from our home and deported. We left Romania on a rickety boat, standing room only kind of thing. And we crossed the river from Romania to Ukraine. And that's where the camp was. When I left the camp, I was rescued. 3 years later, I wore the same coat that I came in with. So between 3.5 and 6.5, I didn't grow. And that's pretty much how people survived for a certain length of time. One of the things that I learned throughout those years was about human nature. Adults aren't quite the way we're taught they're supposed to be. Everywhere, in every group, there are monsters and there are saints. There's no differentiation. That's the human race. People choose which side they're on, what they're going to do. Some people act humanly toward other human beings and others don't.
Welcome to the Alix Mayer Show. Today's guest is Holocaust survivor Vera Sharav. She's one of the few people who can provide the historical context and the modern context of what happened when we were locked down from COVID, and one of the few people who can get away with comparing it to the Holocaust. You're not going to believe all of the parallels between what happened 5 years ago and what happened in the late 30s and 1940s. Her new book, Never Again Now is Global, will be out on June 30th. You're going to want to hear what she said about lockdowns. She has a unique perspective that everybody needs to hear. I'd really like to hear what you think about Vera's story and her perspective, so let me hear from you in the comments. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show. The Alix Mayer Show is sponsored by Mish International, gold and silver specialists since 1963. When you need protection from monetary inflation and leveraged assets exposure, you contact the dedicated people at Mish International. Mish International, a family business, offers true expertise, integrity, reliability, and fair pricing of gold and silver. Visit their website at mishinternational.com. That's MISH international.com. Vera Sharav, thank you so much for coming to the Alix Mayer Show today. It is my great pleasure to have you as a guest.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
We are planning a dinner with you in New York City on June 6th. And that dinner is to support a lawsuit to stop this practice of hospital homicide. And that's a topic we'll get into later in the interview. But what are your thoughts on that case?
Well, it's a case that should speak volumes to people because it could be their daughter. It's very important that we understand that the victims are not particularly, of this class or that class. It cuts across. COVID, the weapons that we used in COVID cut across all of humanity, actually. That's who they had in their lights. But when you read and you hear a story of one child and what happened to her, I can't see that people won't cry.
Yeah. It's devastating.
It's human to human. Every person can identify what would happen if it were my child.
Yeah, this mentally challenged girl, age 27, she was a happy volunteer serving meals to the elderly when in the hospital. And after wanton polypharmacy, 41 days later, she was unrecognizably swollen. They barred her mother, who's also her guardian, from coming to her bedside. And 41 days later, she left in a body bag. It's a devastating story. And so we've taken on this lawsuit, and Vera has joined us as the guest of honor for a dinner that's upcoming on June 6th in Manhattan. So if you want to know more about that, you can go to freenowfoundation.org and get in touch with us. But I want to go back and rewind a whole lot because Vera, I believe you're 89 years old, right? The trajectory of your life really started during the Holocaust, and you were living in Romania. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened to you back then?
Yeah, well, I was 3.5 years old. We were evacuated from our home and deported. And we left Romania on a rickety boat, standing room only kind of thing. It's, bigger than a rowboat, but that kind of a thing. And we crossed the river, the Dniester River, from Romania to Ukraine. And that's where the camp was. There were a couple of camps there. It was not a death camp per se. There were very many camps that were way stations. In other words, the intent was eventually to send everyone to the killing camps. But this was a camp that was without any kind of, they didn't hand out anything. There were no barracks. There was nothing. It was a camp in which some Ukrainians really were around it, farmers. And so whatever people had, whatever they came with, because when you leave that way, when you're expelled that way, and you've seen it in many books and movies, people carry whatever they can, whatever valuables they have, to be able to barter.
Mm.
And that's pretty much how people, survived for a certain length of time. My father died, I can't say exactly whether it was 6 months or 8 months, something like that, early on. I was in the camp for 3 years. To give you just a sense of what starvation means, when I left the camp, I was rescued 3 years later, I wore the same coat that I came in with. So between 3.5 and 6.5, I didn't grow.
Really?
Those are very important years.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, no, people really don't understand what starvation really does. And of course, for a child. He died of typhus, which was a disease that was just all over the camps. And it's a disease that it's spread by lice. So, of course, there was no hygienic anything, no hygiene, no food. And it was cold initially when we went. It was very cold. It was winter. I blamed myself for his death because when we were crossing this river, the Dniester, the boat started to really, people were afraid that it might tap over. He took off his winter coat and threw it in the, and I knew that and I felt guilty because I had a little toy that I didn't throw in the water. So I thought, here is little selfish me and he. One has to really realize that children think and feel a lot of things that they're not given credit for. One of the things that I learned throughout those years was about human nature. Adults aren't quite the way we're taught they're supposed to be. Everywhere, in every group, there are monsters and there are saints.
Mm.
There's no differentiation. That's the human race.
Mm-hmm.
People choose which side they're on, what they're going to do. Some people act humanly toward other human beings and others don't.
And you've seen that play out throughout your life from age 3 until 89.
Absolutely. But of course, it taught me a lot. I really, at this point, and with COVID and all that, my experience helped me a lot because I recognized COVID for what it was third day around.
Did you?
No, I'll tell you, one of the things that has really bothered me during COVID particularly, but this is something that academia and government kind of work together on this one, to get people to trust authorities. Only authorities, not yourself. I know that I trust me to make decisions for me. No one else. And I've had with different people, hey, nope, nope, you don't bully me to do something that I don't want to. I saved my own life down the line on my way out.
That's what I understand. You walked out of that camp by yourself as maybe like a 5 or 6 year old?
Well, no, this was already in 1944. It was toward the end of the war. I mean, really, it was already toward the end. And a deal was made. I'm not sure exactly which organizations. I'm sure cash passed hands. And the Romanian government, well, at that time they decided that they would bring back orphan children who had been sent. Now, I wasn't technically an orphan. I had a mother, but my mother lied to put me on the list to save my life. Uh, so that's how I got out.
Did you under
Eventually, the survivors did get out. The Soviet army uh, released them.
and what were you thinking as a little girl at that time? Did you think your mother was abandoning you, or did you totally understand?
Yeah, well, all my all my life, I always knew to say my mother lied to save my life, but what I felt inside is something different.
Yeah.
And I have to say that actually never healed. When I was separated from her for 4 years, and it's an age which is terribly important. Uh, and yeah, it never really, particularly because she and other relatives, they sort of, I think in Romania, they kind of took whole neighborhoods, and put them all into the same area and camp, which was not far. Ukraine, now it's probably back against Russia. I mean, the borders change there all the time. It's not stable.
And so were you shipped off to New York and to live with
Well,
strangers?
that's 4 years later, really,
Okay.
than New York. Uh, I was 3 years in the camp. For about 8 months, I was kind of a child in transit from one family to another until I got to Palestine. And I was there for 3 years. One of the things my mother did that was very smart was that before I left, she thought of and wrote down every person in the world that she could think of, and she put it in the seams of my coat. So I had addresses and names of people. And as it
Brilliant.
happened, she had a sister in Palestine. And so I was brought to them, and they had a farm, and you would call it an organic farm. At that time, they were all organic. They were little family farms, but that was the happiest childhood that I had in all of my childhood. That was the only happiness, really, was the 3 years there with a family and they had two sons, and I fit right in the middle. One was older and one was younger.
Oh,
And I strongly believe actually that those 3 years on the farm have helped to make me healthy, to really recuperate.
tell us about that.
Well, it was very different at that time. And actually, I left Palestine December 47. I got to New York in January 48. My mother didn't come join me there because she realized there was going to be war and she didn't want to be in a war zone again. But for me, it was a very, very traumatic change. Adjusting in New York at that time was much more difficult, much more difficult, because when I came, I mean, she had nothing here, really. It wasn't a normal, again, it wasn't a normal family at all.
Right. And you didn't speak English probably, so you're starting all over
No,
again in
no,
every way.
no. That's right. Exactly. And it was somehow much harder. Uh, you know, I do want to one incident en route between this 8 months in Romania, and I have to say that one of the things that I learned during the 8 months, again, about people, a Christian family took me in, kept me for about 3 months, and that was I was with the other orphan children. We were on a truck moving from one place to the other, I don't know. But we stopped, it was like for a meal, and it must have been a school or something like that. And I was not feeling well, I was sick. I was sick several times in the camp too. I almost died. I ear infections. Of course, there was no penicillin or anything. But he had pity on me, and he must have been, someone that came to help, to serve, whatever, a do-gooder, good human being. And he took me by the hand, and I went with him. And there was his wife. They didn't have children, so they were very happy to have me there. And it was around Easter time. And they let me play with, they have very special eggs, Easter eggs. They're different from the West European. They're black, painted black, and yellow and red crisscross, which is the same that they use for embroidery. It's very different, yeah. But the point is, I learned at 6 that there are good people and bad people. And it doesn't matter which ethnic group, which religion. No. I saw enough bad people of all kinds.
Did you feel like you had honed an ability to tell if somebody was going to be a good person or if somebody was going to try to take
Absolutely.
advantage? How,
Absolutely.
really?
That's
Was it an
one of the
instant?
things during COVID. No, I have to tell you, this is very
Yeah.
important. I related to the children who could see affect.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's how I learned to discern. I looked at people in the eye and in the face, and I learned to read them. Yes, absolutely did.
Wow. So that served you
And,
well.
and it's something that you need.
Mm-hmm.
It's something you need
Yeah.
in life.
And most children don't have to do that because they're brought up with loving and caring parents and they just learn to trust the adults, but you never
Yeah.
did.
No, but you really, really need to develop an inner strength, an inner knowledge. You see, I think that the over specialization in all fields, really, all academic fields, where one scientist will tell the other one, stay in your lane. I mean, if you're a physicist, you can't touch mine. This is how they argue, really.
Mm-hmm.
That's absurd. We, as human beings in particular, are complex machines. And each thing from the top of our head to the tip of our toes, they're all connected and they're all talking to each other all the time. So if we disregard that, how will a stranger know how you feel?
That's
But that's
right.
what we're taught to do, trust the expert.
Right.
This is the most absurd thing.
It truly
They've
was.
convinced people that they're not competent to make human decisions.
Exactly. And that was the origin of the term Dunning-Kruger syndrome, which is really used to be called doing your own research.
I mean, the very fact that they don't read their own mind, they can't.
Right.
So the very horrific experience that I had then, leaving Romania, again, there were, as I said before, that I managed to befriend strangers and to choose the right people. Well, on the train from Bucharest, where I had stayed with, my mother had a brother who was a banker. So and in Romania, it was pretty easy to buy your way, not to be sent off to concentration camps. The problem with my family was that my father was in the lumber business and he had it all invested in forests. No cash.
Right. Not very liquid.
That's
Yeah.
that's one of the things you learn too. You have to have some liquidity. So anyway, so on the way, en route to the port city, on the train, I befriended a family. And when we got to the port, there were three small boats, and they read off a list assigned each one to whichever boat. And I was assigned to the boat with all the orphans, but I wouldn't go, no matter what. And everybody was on a boat except me. I was sitting on my little valise, crying. No matter what they did, they tried to bribe me, to threaten what I would, no matter what, I would not go on that boat. And yeah, I mean, my reasoning was quite reasonable. I mean, I met a family that I trusted, and I trusted adults. I was an only child. That's the other thing I didn't. And I was little, so I always was worried about bullies.
Oh, yeah. So you were with the
Yeah.
Christian family at that time, and did you find out what happened to the people on that boat later?
Yeah. The first night out at sea, and I would get seasick, very badly seasick. So I was asleep finally when this happened. But the first night out at sea, we all went out. One small boat was a little faster, maybe it had a faster engine, I don't know. But the boat with all the children was torpedoed by a Nazi submarine, and there were no survivors.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I only found out in the morning, you know? I found out, I never said one word, nothing. I didn't say one word to anybody, but I thought to myself, I was right.
Yeah, that confirmed your intuition.
That's it.
Wow.
And that incident, no, I did not all my life live with the vivid memory. But I did, really, with COVID, it came back.
Really?
To trust it,
So
absolutely.
the abuses of COVID unlocked these childhood memories for you?
Some of it, yeah. This particular, when I realized that COVID was a scam, I live in New York City, and New York City was the epicenter at the beginning. And there were a couple of women, and somehow I got a copy of it, who went around New York City with their iPhone to every hospital and took videos. And guess what? They were empty.
Yep.
All the hospitals but three. Everybody was being sent to those three. And of course, those were overcrowded. We had 20, New York has a lot. That told me it's a lie. That's it. In other words, what I really want to emphasize to people is how important it is to think critically. Hey, if it's empty and they're telling you everybody's dying and their hospitals are overcrowded, they weren't at all.
That's right.
Because nothing else was happening. They didn't do any surgeries. They didn't do any of the normal healthcare things, right?
Right. And knowing you must have been suspicious before you saw the videos of empty hospitals, but that was just like, that was it for you, the last straw.
Yeah, that was really it. And after that, it made sense that it didn't make sense.
Wow.
It really did. Additionally, no, I had also my husband, who actually died April 12th, 2020, right then, the lockdown.
Oh, dear.
It had nothing to do with COVID. He had been sick for 14 years. But he was at an assisted living place, and they wouldn't let us visit. He didn't see me for. That didn't kill him, obviously, but it didn't help.
No, it weakened him psychologically, I'm
And
sure.
adding insult to injury, we had to wait something 2.5 to 3 weeks to bury him. Why? Because the cemeteries are overcrowded.
Oh, oh. Well, that's what they told us. I actually met an undertaker when we were locked down in 2020, and he said that they did not have more applications for graves at that time. It's the same.
Well, when we finally got there, guess what? And
What?
this is a huge cemetery in New Jersey. We were the only few.
Well, there you go. That's consistent with what I found out here in California. Wow.
Just like the hospitals were overcrowded, cemeteries overcrowded, it was a lie.
Exactly. Well, I actually caught Gavin Newsom and his public health cronies lying about the occupancy of hospitals in the San Francisco Bay Area. I looked at the number of beds available in the ICU and non-ICU before we got locked down. And then 6 months later, right before Christmas of 2020, suddenly there were 300 beds missing from the counts, and we were teetering at 84% occupancy because those beds were missing, right? So they fudged the denominator.
Well, counting and all that sort of thing is very easy to mess around.
Yeah, so I don't know, did they throw the beds out the window? Did they burn them? I don't know, but he was telling us that if we reached 85% occupancy in the hospitals, then we would all be locked down even more and we couldn't see our families for the holidays. So they were manipulating the whole hospital system, the whole way through all the data, as you know. So, okay, so this starts to bring up a lot of flashbacks for you. It's unlocking a lot of memories from the Holocaust and your escape and survival.
It was really, but I had earlier experience with the medical profession, so that I knew about some of the shenanigans.
Yeah, is that too painful for you to talk about what happened to your son as a teenager?
Yeah, it very much, I would say, and the book certainly shows the parallels. One of the parallels was really the medical profession. During the Holocaust, the medical profession was the one that made a lot of it happen.
Mm-hmm.
The first victims, really, during what was called the T4 program, it was began with the babies, disabled German babies, who were taken away from their parents and killed. They did experiments such as starvation. And then it was older children, and then it was all the mentally ill, and then it was the elderly. They cleaned out, in other words, what they called worthless eaters.
Right, right.
And hospitals during COVID were doing a pretty similar job.
Right. And all under the guise of medicalizing everyone. And that's the key word, is when things get medicalized, then the state tries to come between you and your rights. The state comes between a parent and a child. The state comes between a parent and the school. And that's the beginning of the end, right?
Well, this is, I think, one of the things that is really important for people, for really the public to grasp, how important the Nuremberg Code is.
Let's talk about that. You know, it's a ton about the Nuremberg Code. And for the Californians watching this, the Nuremberg Code is codified into our health and safety code. So let's take a deep dive on that right now.
Well, what's important is that's the only positive thing that came out of the Holocaust, I would say, the Nuremberg Code, nothing else. And the Nuremberg Code came out after the doctor's trial. Okay, there was a doctor's trial, some 12 doctors. 22 were tried and some were executed. But this was really a drop in the bucket compared to all the participants in the medical profession and in the judiciary. Everyone in the professions, really. But highest rank, the highest number and the highest ranking were psychiatrists. It's very important to understand, to this day, psychiatry is not a science, and it certainly isn't a healing profession. There are no objective tests as to who is sane and who is insane. They make it up as they feel like it. The new drug tells them which diagnosis. Yes, it's a joke about the psychiatric diagnostic manual. They give it a fancy name as if that'll make it scientific. It has nothing to do with science.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, I've seen it happen again and again.
And you see it, it's very much, they work closely with the police because they can send people off, off the street by saying they're insane. And in an area where it's been very prevalent is children, foster children. That's a whole big scam going on.
Oh, and you exposed a lot of that in New York, from what I
Yep.
understand. Hold on. Before we go to the children in New York, you just said something really interesting. You said that most of the criminals from the Nazi era who were prosecuted during the Nuremberg trials, they had psychiatry degrees.
Psychiatrists were the first one. They worked out a formula whereby they would decide which person, in the beginning it was the little children, were to be exterminated, which ones were to be tested, and and that sort of thing. They gave the certification.
So it wasn't quantitative like today's social credit scores, but they were doing a qualitative assessment and deciding who would live, who would die, who would be experimented on.
Yeah. Well, there is a protocol that's part of Obamacare that was implemented in the hospitals during COVID, and that is putting a value on human lives. And the value that they put is, rather than say ethnic, no, age. So who do you think are the most valuable people for whom you're supposed to give the best medical care?
Oh, the working age group.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Young adults.
Yep.
Okay. And who are the worthless eaters?
Right.
The babies and the elderly.
That's right.
It's exactly the same.
And the elderly who are using the Medicare system and getting Social Security. It's a way for the government to save money.
So that is what's worked out. Ezekiel Emanuel, All Lives or Total Lives or something like that. That's what it's called. But it was incorporated in the Obamacare. And it was implemented to a great extent.
Did you hear about a Palantir program? I can't remember the name of it. Maybe it was Lavender or Gotham, where supposedly people in hospitals were being given scores and then their care was based on that score?
Well, you can play all kinds of games. Look, when you have human beings as free objects, you can do anything. So you can try out any kind of game you want.
And
that's really it's all gamble.
Exactly. So let's go back to the formation of the Nuremberg Code and what this means for us today.
Well, the Nuremberg Code, which the American Medical Association didn't want to hear about because, that's only for those barbarian Nazis. No, it's not. It's international. And it covers all human beings. It promises all human beings that they may not be used as experimental subjects without their informed consent. And they describe what informed consent means really in detail. You need a comprehending person. So if you have someone who's not, then it's somebody close to them, not some government agent. And it requires really absolutely full information about what the trial is about, what the risks are, what the benefits, if any. And they even stipulate, and I guess this is what sent the medical profession into hysteria, was that if they want to do an experiment that they have reason to believe might harm, they can do it on themselves only. The doctors to serve. And I've been in a couple of committees, ethics committees, so-called. But anyway, where one of the things that they really find, no, doctors should never be in experiments. That's not fair. And I thought, that's Nuremberg. See, they don't want that.
That's right. That's an important part of Nuremberg.
Because, and if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Who but the doctors would have even an idea of what kind of risks are involved.
That's right. So yeah, so the Nuremberg Code established your voluntary consent, not coerced like we had when we were locked down.
No,
And you have to be informed of the risks and the benefits, and then you can make a decision. And Vera, I have a question for you because I actually don't like the term informed consent because it implies that after you're informed of the risks and the benefits, that you would then go ahead and consent. I think it should have been called informed choice. Have you thought any about that?
well, this, remember, this was 1947, and it was right after the atrocities were brought to light. That's why they had to do it. Didn't do it really because they wanted to. But sure, we as democracies supposed to have choice. But look, when have we really had a democracy?
Right. It became so clear to me when we were locked down that the consent of the governed is intolerable. And we think that we're part of this and we're running the show, and it just became painfully obvious that we're not.
No, we're really not. And they have managed though to confuse people to such a degree that people want government to tell them what to do because then they get entitlements.
Right.
See, that's the catch. There's always a carrot and a stick, right? But the carrot doesn't compare to the stick because the stick is a deadly.
That's right. That's
So
right.
they give you a lollipop. I mean, yes, they're spraying glyphosate on food items, essentially, on farmers' foods. Oh, but we're told, oh, but we're going to change the labels. Who
Right.
cares about the label once you've already sprayed this damn poison?
Exactly. Yeah. And anytime you go out to dinner, you never see a label.
Yeah, no, of course not.
Right.
It's the point is though, and I have tried, and others. You see that people really, if they would take that Nuremberg Code with them when they go to a hospital to anything, and say, "Here, this is what I want. This is what you have to do. This is international law. I don't care what your governor says or whatever." The point is though that I know of several cases where judges, U.S. judges, when the Nuremberg Code was cited, they accepted it.
That's
I was involved in a case that involved the children. Uh, this was in Baltimore. Uh, Only black children, toddlers. This was partly paid for by the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and it was about partial lead abatement. It was the purpose was to make legal just partly lead abatement. Now, these children were poor children, inner city children in Baltimore, and they rented the apartments only to families that had little children, so that the children would. That's what they do, crumbling. It
oh
was the Kennedy Krieger Institute, Johns Hopkins.
yes. Wait. So you're saying this was an experiment where they moved these children on purpose into an apartment with lead in the
Well, they
paint,
had to, yes,
but it was an experiment to get the children to be exposed to the lead and consume it.
and to show that they're okay, except
Oh,
to show they're, except what they didn't tell them, parents, mothers mainly, was that they kept testing the blood, and it kept getting higher and higher lead, which meant that they made them retarded,
right, right.
causes brain damage.
Yeah, it suppresses IQ.
Now, how did I get involved? None of the environmental groups, really, none of the big environmental groups, and those are mainly lawyers, none of them touched it. But it reached the Maryland Court of Appeals, which is the highest court there. And every one of the medical institutions in Washington, everywhere, they sent amicus briefs that it was okay.
Really? That it was okay to expose these children to lead in the home?
Yeah, this was fine. I wound up, and I have to tell you, this is really funny because I wound up doing with a friend an amicus brief. I never did it before, but we did an amicus brief.
And that means friend of the court,
on
basically.
Behalf of the judge, agreeing with the judge. His decision was that this was illegal.
Good.
Well, let me tell you. Yeah. But the judge, you see, he himself cited concentration camps. He himself. He saw the rat. He absolutely excoriated the IRB, the research board of Kennedy Krieger.
Because the IRB's job is to make sure that the experiment is ethical and the methodology is sound.
Right. But this is a sham.
Right.
IRBs are essentially employees of whatever institution is doing the research. The institution wants that grant. The institution wants its researchers to have the job. It's just totally, each one is linked to the other, ironclad. The judge recognized that, so he excoriated the IRB as well.
Good.
Everything. But you never hear about it. This is a 50-page decision.
Wow. The Alix Mayer Show is sponsored by Mish International, gold and silver specialists since 1963. When you need protection from monetary inflation and leveraged assets exposure, you contact the dedicated people at Mish International. Mish International, a family business, offers true expertise, integrity, reliability, and fair pricing of gold and silver. Visit their website at mishinternational.com. That's MISH international.com. Do you ever wonder what my foundation, Free Now Foundation, really does? It turns out that after all the articles and videos that I do, that a lot of people still wonder what we really do. We're California's leading medical freedom nonprofit, but did you know we're the only group in California trying to end the medical mandates so children can go to school safely in California? And what does that mean? People don't get this, but it means there's no need for an exemption if there's no mandate. We won't need a religious exemption. We won't need a medical exemption. We won't need any type of exemptions anymore because parents will just be able to say no. No is a complete sentence. And Free Now Foundation is going to stay in the courts and do this legal strategy, pursue it as long as it takes until parents call the shots again in California and beyond, and parents can just say a simple no. So if you share this vision of a world where we don't have medical mandates, where children do not need an exemption of any sort to go to school, and this work calls to you, please consider supporting us at Free Now Foundation, freenowfoundation.org. That's spelled FREENOW foundation.org, and make a donation today. And what was the conclusion in the decision?
That they just violated everything. Yeah, and he cited all those things. He cited the concentration camp. He said this was just like that. He recognized it.
That's amazing.
But what really bothered me at the end, and because I then met with lawyers from one of the organizations, I don't remember which one, and I said, by the way, how come you didn't send at least an amicus brief, something? Oh, well, we didn't. I said, yeah, thanks a lot. I said, I had to.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think lawyers should sit on their hands as they watch other lawyers' cases go through the courts like that. Those briefs are really important.
You know, I mean, the medical establishment likes to pretend that this case doesn't exist, but it does. Mm-hmm. And it really, because he really took it all apart, what they had to do and why they did the way they did it. And the cover-up, they helped that they got from the IRB. Mm-hmm. Realized the sham.
So this case, Vera, it sets a precedent for the Nuremberg Code being used in the courts to dictate how human trials should proceed, right?
Yeah, I mean, before you can do it, you really have to be able to tell the truth about what you're doing, why you're doing. You have to justify. Experiments have to be justified.
Right.
But that's not how things work because there is a lot of conflict of interest built in to research. It's very simple.
That's right. Vera, how come I heard so often that judges didn't take the Nuremberg Code seriously, even in California, where it's written into our health and safety code, and people would say, oh, that's not a law, that's just a code. Tell us about that. Is that true?
Well, this is just it. The International Court has recognized it. I mean, this is international law.
Mm-hmm.
It's not up to a single. And the irony of ironies, of course, is that it was American judges who sat there,
Right.
and they wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
They wrote it. So it's a little absurd. But, with lawyers, hyperbole, you can do anything, right?
That's very true.
So but that's why people. No, the other thing. There's another aspect to it, and I have argued with some quote ethicists because they think that you have to make language very polite. Not a human subject, a participant. Now, what does it say? If you're a participant, just like the doctor is a participant, you're all equal, right? That's a lie. But when you say you are a human subject of an experiment, a medical experiment, that tells hey, wait a minute, do I want to be in this? I mean, it speaks to the ordinary person. It tells them, hey, this is a red flag.
That's a good point. Yeah, you can't just call somebody a participant because the gravity of that doesn't hit them.
You have another edition, which is an American edition, which is bioethics. It's a made-up government, really. Government first made it up. But it started at Georgetown. They got together after the disclosure of Tuskegee. So 72. And they created, essentially, bioethics. It's American medical ethics, but it's not medical, it's not ethics. And just to give you a hint of how absurd it is, most professions, including hairdressers, have ethical codes. Ask a bioethics, where's your professional code of ethics? There ain't none.
Is that right?
Yes, they don't have.
Wow. Really? And so what do they say after you ask that question?
Well, how many ask them? But they get hired by both pharmaceutical companies, by governments, by hospitals, but you name it, they're all over the place.
Wow.
And they have none for themselves at all.
So it's just a figurehead. And wait, am I remembering that Fauci's wife is a bioethicist?
Yes. Yes. She was at NIH. Yes.
So right. Interesting.
No conflict of interest at all.
No, zero.
It really, this just shows how there's a facade and there's the real.
Right.
The reality, and the two don't match.
Not at all.
And now again, you see people in the street recognize the fact. One guy told me he was, a cab driver. He was so angry. He said, 9th Avenue had been redone, resurfaced the street. And then he said, a month later, he sees it puncturing and opening it up. He said, that's my money. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Taxpayer money, they don't care.
Wow.
So the corruption is really, it's in so many areas where government decides something far away. And they have a contract, the guy has to be, so he's got to do something for his contract. So never mind that this was all new. There's nothing wrong with it. But you make a hole and then you fix it up and it's another God knows how many thousands of dollars.
Exactly.
But it was just interesting. The cab driver just saw it himself and he said, what? They just finished this brand new. Why are they doing that again?
Right. Yeah. And it's just all the corruption. And, Nick Shirley is a hero going around exposing all this corruption. And Elon Musk just gave him $100 million to continue his work in California to protect him because he's not safe right now. There's so many death threats against him for exposing this corruption that makes it really hard for us to write the checks to the IRS right now.
Well, look, these things have been built in.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, really, I, before COVID and all that, in any of my talks, I have said the one thing that was unique about the Holocaust was the involvement of medicine. That was it.
Hmm.
Without the medical profession, they couldn't have really done it. And we certainly couldn't have done it with COVID. So it's very parallel.
It sure is.
So medicine, it's really an exact comparison.
Yeah, and I think people really underestimate that because they're really trying to take away our freedom through the door of medical freedom, right?
Yeah, I mean, medical freedom is, and actually, it's in American law anyway. You know, you're not. It's called battery if you touch somebody and don't have permission. So how could you then say doctors are allowed anything they want? No. Well, but you see, there's a big difference. I'm old enough to remember when doctors were really where you had confidentiality, where you dealt with a doctor, and your medical records were locked up in a cabinet, handwritten. So they claim, oh, doctors have such terrible handwriting, so therefore electronic. Well, electronic is open sesame. Anybody can hack it, and they do because it's worth a lot of money.
It sure is. And that's where we're going
Because
to get targeted.
medical is worth a lot of money.
That data is so insanely valuable. I've actually heard that Ford Motor Company makes more money selling the data that they collect than from selling cars now.
I'm not at all surprised
Yeah,
because there's so many. Right, there's so many businesses that, and there have been many articles about the hacking of the medical records and how easily they convince the doctors, how stupid. And now medicine is totally corporate. You've got the big corporations, Northwell. It's funny, I'm dealing with a doctor there. I have to, but because I have to have cataract
mm,
uh, removed. But once it's corporate, you have no say at all about anything,
nope, nope. You become a number.
and everything is done electronically. All your give and take is also electronic, and so anybody can get it.
Exactly. And that's why so many people like you and me, they've just exited the traditional system. Like, I don't have regular insurance. I have a health share program. I have to go in and say I'm cash pay, and then I get reimbursed later.
You see what I mean? But everything is done so that it's collected. People need to
Right.
understand that all this technology of getting people's information, it's being stored. It's being stored for a purpose, and the
Exactly.
purpose is not to help you.
Well, and those purposes really started to show when we got locked down. So I want to go back to the time where you said the last straw for you for COVID was when you saw that those hospitals were empty, and then all of a sudden you started just massively waking up to the fraud that was COVID, and now it's so obvious what it's all leading to. Can you walk us through the dangers that were just massively exposed when we were locked down, and where you think we are today?
Well, one of the things that they did massively during lockdown is get rid of a lot of local businesses, small businesses. So they impoverished a lot of people, made them dependent. The other thing they did was install all these surveillance, the lights and the cameras, and all this stuff was done during lockdown. And they introduced in various places, like the vaccine passport, show us your papers, and now everything is like that. In New York, the senior citizens get a discount on public transportation. Now, it used to be you'd have a card which was with your picture, with your name, with your date of birth. So it was an ID at the same time. Now that's it. Just a number.
Mm,
Finish a number. And I say, hey, that was a number. Same thing.
yeah.
But this is much easier because it's all central.
Hmm.
You don't have to have those heavy. uh, what was the name of the company that did it? It was IBM, but the machines were done in Europe. But anyway, they had them at concentration camps to
Right.
kill. Oh yeah, that
Right.
was for surveillance. Now, hey, this other kind of ID, it's really worse because you can be from far, far away. You can have full view. You can stop people from buying what you don't want them to buy, for listening to what they don't want you to listen to. I mean, it's only going to get worse unless people get up and say no more.
I agree. So you're talking about the facial recognition that what the people got when they got the real ID, because that's 35 points from ear to ear, and that's your verified biometric picture of your face. And that makes you a part of the Internet of Bodies, which is where all those
Yeah,
cameras come in. And
yeah.
people just aren't even aware. They think they just went and renewed their driver license, but that became a federalized identification card that went to Palantir.
And by the way, I couldn't believe it. I went for some tests. Uh, and it's at eye, ear, and nose hospital. The doctor has his office as well there. Very convenient. This way you don't have to travel. But hey, to get into a hospital now, you've got guards, you've got surveillance, you've got to go through a. I said, my God, you want the passport as well? I mean, what?
Right,
And they have to have, yes. If you have an appointment, that gets everything is centralized.
right. It's
Centralized.
like TSA at the hospital now, right?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
So this is where it's at. I mean, it's happened. It's already happened. It's not
right.
just happening. It's already happened, and people don't realize. No, this is not for your protection. No, it's to intimidate you, to make sure that you obey.
That's right.
Everything is to obey.
Right. And you're one of the few people who can get away with comparing the lockdowns to the Holocaust. Can you go through some of the things that are similar, like the medicalization, the identification by a number?
Also, now at that time, it was an ethnic thing, right? In other words, you isolate the Jews, isolate the gypsies. Uh, Now it's not that, but you had that happening during COVID, where the people who were absolute obedient, they became very militant about you're not obeying, you should be put in jail. I mean, that breakup of communities.
Yes, there was this like a Stasi snitch culture in 2020, right?
Frankly, since then, people really don't talk to each other. When I talk to people, and I said once to a guy, what we're doing is very unusual. And he said, how do you mean? I said, well, we're talking, it's like, and he started to laugh. He said, I know what you mean. He said, everybody is like this. I said, that's right.
That's right.
That phone is a separating instrument, not we were told the exact opposite. Remember, we were told, oh, you could compete with your friends all over. Yeah, but the one standing right next to you, no.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it does. The phones separate us. The masks separated people. The humanity went away.
It's it's dehumanizing in
Right.
every which way. Uh, Humans need people. We do better with other people.
Yep. That's right.
Loneliness was one of the things that killed during COVID. Many elderly were locked, isolated completely
Mm-hmm.
from other human beings. That's the worst thing you can do to you.
Yep. It truly is.
And that was not by accident, and it was not for their benefit. On the contrary,
No.
it was all a lie.
What do you think now when the government says that this is for your benefit or this is for your convenience?
I tell people, if you want my real advice, anytime the government tells you to do something, do the opposite. You'll be okay. It's very simple. They had the wrong food pyramid, and now they're blaming it on us. We, as if we, no, 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 no. This was government went along with industry to prop up, you know, the certain industries, and they could play game, and then they switch it around. I mean, it just shows you it's arbitrary.
Right. And yeah, it was never a pyramid in the first place. It should have been a
No,
funnel. When you turn it
no,
upside down, it's a funnel.
it's all of it was a lie, and the same thing. It's funny because right now, when at my age, I don't take any medications at all.
That's
And
very
and I
rare.
was surprised. Thank goodness, the ophthalmologist told me, "Oh, that's okay. That's good." I said, "Yeah, I take some vitamins." He said, "That's all right." So even they're getting it a little bit. Some of them,
Hmm.
anyway. Um, no, no medications, no flu shots, no nothing. Whatever they say to do, I do no.
That's great.
And I have no, and really in a personal way, and I think most women have had some experience where you were told to do something, usually to take something out from your anatomy, and I said no,
Yeah, no, thank you.
and they always regretted it, and their lives were ruined because of it, whether it's their sex life or all kinds of things.
It's
They
true.
really, it's become treacherous.
I agree. And every body part has a purpose.
That's right, exactly. Every part of you has a purpose.
You wrote this book, Never Again Now is global. And from what I understand, this is a collection of essays about COVID and the tyranny that was brought in starting in 2020 and how all these plans really started to show big time. And I think in there you make a lot of comparisons to the Holocaust, and you talk about fascism, financial laundering, you talk about the weaponization of public health. Tell us about how this book came to be and tell us a little bit about it.
Well, let me first of all explain. The book is some 17 chapters with some 14 or 15 authors. I am not, I organized it, I invited them, but these are very varied people. There are top notch scientists, doctors, historians, political science. It's a run through, and and they're very different voices. This is not meant to be like a copy of an academic book. No, they're not all of the same club. They're very different. Some disagree with each other. I believe in that very strongly. I believe in the right to disagree, and I don't like any organization that insists on whatever narrative they've decided is most effective or most whatever it is. No, human beings have different opinions. And in fact, in my documentary, which preceded this, and that was some 5 episodes in which I interviewed some 32 people, again, various walks of life, some Holocaust survivors, children of survivors, even grandchildren. Grandchildren, by the way, are very interesting because very often I learned that yeah, survivors, the grandmother would talk to the grandchild, not to the child, and tell the grandchild everything. And one kid says, "Grandma, why are you telling me all this? It's terrible. It's horrible." And she said, "Because in case you ever confront something like that, you should know what to do."
Wow. That is the most wise grandmotherly advice ever.
You see, that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
And she trusted the little boy, and yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
he remembers her, vividly. So the book has very uh, different perspectives, different people's perspective on both the history, what caused the Holocaust. That's part of it too. Who was involved? I talk about the bankers, the American corporations, of course the German corporations, but no, a lot of American, British. Hitler could not have done it without. He
Right.
had nothing, actually. When he took power, he had nothing. No money, no real army.
Mm.
All of that was built.
Wow.
That's what happened. See, the whole world's history is not taught correctly. The real culprits, the perpetrators, are shielded.
That's right.
Always, oh, the Nazis. Oh, yeah, that's the Nazis. That's the communists. Who provided the money?
Right. Well, and Catherine Austin Fitz always says something interesting. She said, if we know their names, they're not the ones in control.
That's true. But some names, I mean, some corporations you certainly know.
Mm-hmm.
The ones, yes, the question that, and people have arguments about a cabal, a this, a that, and extraterrestrial and all that. I don't deal with cabals in that, but there are secret societies.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of things go on in secret societies that clearly it's secret, right?
That's right.
And the elite, multimillionaires, billionaires, are involved.
Mm-hmm.
We need to really understand that, a lot of the worst crimes that are committed, including child trafficking, for example, that's that is shielded by these kind of societies.
That's right. That's right. So, what's the end game here? The plans, you could see the plans starting to form, especially during the Holocaust in the 1940s. And they really started to show in probably more of like a technocracy way starting in 2020. What's the end game?
Well, this is just it. The ones who really are the rulers of the universe, they're completely deluded. They're just totally immoral. They would like to destroy this universe and put something else in place. This is the grand delusion. And so that's why there are too many people, there are too many cows. Every time there's something which gives us food, right? It's always though. They didn't say get rid of the rattlesnakes, I noticed.
Right.
Why don't they target them? No, they target the food giving ones, the ones that we need. They want, and remember, there are sects that really want the second coming. But first you'd have to destroy. Well, if you believe that and you can have enough wherewithal, the machinery, the money, and to do that, then you are out to destroy what we have, what is, and that is really what's happened. We really need to understand this is not a fantasy. This is not conspiracy theory. There are always conspirators, but if you break up their game, they can't do it. And we can by our number.
Right.
Our number is what matters here. Numbers matter.
Right. We have the numbers. They might have the money, they might have the power, but we have the numbers.
But without obedience of the masses, they have no power whatsoever.
That's
This
right.
is what I don't know how to really convince people that that's just it. There was one who quipped, and I think that's worth repeating, which is to say, well, I'm only one person, what can I do? Right? You hear that.
Right.
And then you say, no, you're not one person. You're 8 billion people. Just think about that. 8 billion. If you can get some of those billions to do, then it's over. Then the whole thing is over.
That's right. And with what's coming down right now, what are some actions people can take as an individual that contribute to the mass disobedience?
Well, for one thing, they should not be really put into a funnel of fear, because fear cripples. Fear paralyzes you, both your thinking and your movement. You become really like a deer in the lights. That's what they've done. And it's worked. You saw it with COVID. It worked. People were terrified of an invisible virus.
Right.
Doesn't matter if it's a virus, if it's something else. Doesn't matter. A poison, something that made you sick. But it's not something to be afraid of. That's just it.
Right.
If it was a real ailment, it gets treated. It's really, you cannot have a lethal, transmissible disease. You just can't. You transmit it, it then dies with the person.
Right.
So it can't go to the next one.
Yeah.
I mean, but these are things that, okay, I know within the medical profession, big fights, that's one of those ideological fights. Virus, no virus. Yes, virus, no. I don't care what you call it. They would put lice if that was effective enough, using instead something else, the bacteria. But the fact that they can dictate to the hospitals to become killing centers, that should frighten people. That should wake them up.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting that there are people who know it. I had a fall in January early, and my one fear was to go to hospital.
Right.
And when I mentioned it to the manager of a few of our buildings, he said, "Hospitals, that's where they kill you." I said, "Oh, you know the protocol?" And he said, "My father was in a hospital for 2 weeks, and every day he kept getting worse and worse and worse. Finally, we grabbed him, we took him, got him out of there. After 10 days, he's fine, back home, he's doing fine."
Right.
So people are getting it. People who've been bitten a bit, not as lethally as Rachel. But that's what's happened. And I remember very well during the height of COVID, one of the I don't want to name him, but one of the freedom fighters, so-called, he had a radio program, and he interviewed me and Dr. Merrill Ness, who was in my house that day. And I said that Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York was a mass murderer. Oh, you go, no. You don't mean really. They didn't know. They did that. I said, yes, they did. Absolutely, I stick with it. I'm sorry, that's what it is. He was a mass murderer. And he got huge money for a book he wrote during that time on our taxpayer time. Yeah.
Mm. And now there's evidence that he knew, isn't there?
It's totally, I mean, this is what look, it was the insurance industry were his biggest campaign contributors.
Mm. There you go.
The insurance industry gained all that money of unused insurance. People paid premiums for God knows all their lives, and then gone.
Yeah.
It was a very thought out strategy. This did not happen by chance or somebody just happened on it. No, they had committees, they had all kinds of people work out exactly how and who would gain.
Yeah, it was too well planned. My boyfriend doesn't like me saying this, but I think that there is a government accessible AI that we use to plan out all of COVID. And
Yeah.
he thinks, well, if that existed at the government level, we would have had access to, but I don't think so. I think everything was too planned out, too perfectly planned out, even like the gimmies, like, oh, there was a lab leak. Let's give them that one to make them think they're winning. I think that was all planned out. It's like when I was shopping for rugs in Turkey in the year 2000, these rugs were passed off to me and my boyfriend at the time as handmade rugs, but they'd programmed the mistakes into the rugs that were machine made, and they tried to pass off the machine made ones as handmade because they said, oh, but there's mistakes in it. It's handmade. You have to pay more. It's handmade. You see the mistake? And I think that's when I look at the COVID plans, I think like some mistakes were planned in, and then everything else was just perfectly laid out.
It always, look, they had lots of meetings. I mean, we have evidence of that. They had lots of meetings, planning, what do they call these
Yeah, the tabletop exercises.
yeah,
Yeah.
tabletop exercise. That's what they did.
Hmm.
They did it before. And contracts, for the so-called vaccines, they went out way before.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and
So
the paper trail of
really,
patents.
it was very planned. They don't do something like that not planned.
That's right.
And each war is pre-planned.
Would you say this was a war without bullets?
Oh, definitely. Who needs bullets? This is much easier.
Right. You can medicalize a population and do it with that.
Absolutely. No bullets. That's yesteryear.
Yeah.
That's almost like a paper diary, right?
Right.
Which I'd like to go back to. Frankly, if I had it my way, even though my penmanship now is terrible, but there was a time, especially in the 19th century, people actually wrote letters, closed the envelope, put a stamp on, and no one but the recipient would see it.
Yeah. That was privacy. That was. So tell me, Vera, I want you to leave us with some words of hope, but I also want to ask you one final question. Was COVID about population control and governance, or about depopulation, or both?
Depopulation. Look, they managed to get most of the global community, into a tither. They did. They frightened from A to Z. That was the first time that really global assault on humanity. That's what it was. Uh, Other wars were more localized, one country against another, or three countries, or whatever, but it was always pretty localized. This was all over.
Mm.
They did not get everyone in the world as obsessed as they did the Western countries in particular. It's interesting. It's the industrialized, educated,
Yeah.
who were the
So,
most saturated with this stuff.
right. So would you say it was basically World War III against Western countries?
Yeah, but you see, there is some pushback. I think one of the pushbacks that was interesting with the World Health Organization, which was very much part of it, the World Health Organization was part of this planning and doing and giving the orders, which then the governments all duplicated. That's how they became worldwide. But when some of the countries where colored people are, they said no to certain things, and that was a shock.
Yeah.
That sent a shockwave.
Yeah. After everything we've done.
Hey, that's a big population back there, southeast.
Yep.
So it isn't quite. And the other thing and I don't have an answer to that, and I don't know, but China is very interesting in all of this too, because China, we're supposedly enemies, half enemy, and yet all our medical countermeasures, every single thing, the swabs, the masks, everything came from China. Now, how the heck do you give your enemy that kind of business and control and access to your population?
That's
To
right.
poison them, really, none of it makes sense.
None of it. None of it does.
And that's why I say that if you assure people that yes, whatever government tells you is a lie, then you're free to decide yourself what you want to do and what you don't want to do.
That's
And
right.
you will decide much better. You'll make a few mistakes, of course. We all do. That's what living is about. You make mistakes and you learn from them. Hopefully.
There's a Pink Floyd song that goes, "Mother, should I trust the government?" And I have that poster in my bathroom to remind me every day not to trust
Don't.
the government. I think it's very good
Yep.
advice.
This was one thing that I have to admit, Ronald Reagan he said, the most frightening words in the English language are, we're from the government and we're here to help you.
That's right. I remember that.
That was pretty good.
I agree. So what words of hope can you leave us with?
Well, the hope is that the more people wake up and trust their own minds, their own instinct, their own experience, that's what gives them strength. That's what should give them, confidence in their own well-being, and that they can also imbue to their children. But if they're frightened little, lambs, then they're not. What are they teaching their children?
That's
They're
right.
not parenting.
That's right. I think there was a family that was just convicted of keeping their children in a home for 3 or 4 years. I think it might have been in Ireland because of fears of COVID. And I think they were convicted of child abuse.
Well, the children were absolutely abused, and little children. I told you that's where I felt really, really for them. They were taught that every stranger is an enemy that could kill you with a virus.
That's right. That's what got people to turn.
This was like everybody is an enemy. That is the most horrible thing to teach a child.
I agree. And they did it. They somehow got away with it, and we've got to erase that somehow. But I fear that they've just created 3 new generations of germaphobes.
Well, we have to hope that just the experience of living will, eradicate some of that.
Exactly.
uh,
Yeah.
because I mean that's how it is. And even even people who starve, you can't eat too much right away because that's pretty deadly too. You have everything, and then becomes slowly, but you do recuperate. You can recover.
Yeah, and you're a great example of that. So you've written a book called Never Again Now is Global, and I know it's coming out soon. Tell us when it's going to be released and where people can get it.
It's going to be released on June 30th. That's the date. Um, and hopefully it'll be available everywhere. We'll put a website. Children's Health Defense is underwriting it. Um, and it will be followed by at least one and maybe two books that I'm planning. Because this needs as much explication, if I will use that term, to arouse people to convince them that they need to really think out of the box that they've been put into. They've been put into a cage.
Yep.
It's a prison. A prison of the mind is the worst thing, really, because that's where humans are different from animals. We can, we can have ideas, we can absorb new ideas, we can examine and change our ideas. All that is taken away when you're kept in a box of fear and dictate, just everything dictated.
Exactly. And that's really self-injurious behavior when it comes down to it.
Absolutely. They cannot do it without your compliance. This is what really it's about.
Vera Sharav, I think you are the most important voice that's emerged from the lockdowns because you bring the perspective. You bring the perspective from the late 1930s and 1940s, and in terms of what can happen to us if your guard is not up and if you trust the wrong people. So I commend you. You've been doing a lot of nonprofit work for a long time, but your voice when we got locked down was, I believe, the most important one. So thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your experience and your wisdom with everyone.
Thank you very much. I hope that people will think about it, and if they read the book, they will think about it much more. Because I'm not a voice in the wilderness, really,
No, you're not.
but I do tell it the way it is, and I don't care whose toes I step on.
We love that. Thank you, Vera Sharav.
Thank you. Bye
What a
bye.
pleasure. We are so happy to have as our prime sponsor, Mish International, Northern California's acclaimed specialists in rare coins and gold and silver investments. Our friend and supporter, Robert Mish, is the same principal that started the company back in 1963, and he's still there every day with 63 years of experience. He has integrity, reliability, and fair pricing, whether you're buying or selling. When you have business to do with precious metals, you'll always be treated well at Mish International. Call 650-324-9110 and tell Robert that Alex sent you.